Welcome back, Excellencies, dear guests. Are we ready to act in time to save our planet? That is the burning question that confronts each climate conference more urgently every passing year. Here at the COP28 summit on methane and other non-CO2 greenhouse gases, we are going to answer that question with a yes. On behalf of the Methane Summit co-hosts, UAE, the US, and China, welcome to an affirmation that the world's largest economies are acting to cut emissions of gases tens, hundreds, even thousands of times more potent than CO2. And they are inspiring other partners to join them. As you'll remember, Excellencies, it was the US-Chinese agreement that helped facilitate the breakthrough in Paris 8 years ago. Today, thanks to the good offices of UAE as COP28 president, we build on a new US-Chinese initiative to enhance international cooperation. Announced by the two countries' leaders on the margins of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation meeting in mid-November, the aptly named Sunnyland Statement made headlines worldwide with its pledge to develop 2035 NDCs that are economy-wide and include all greenhouse gases. Emissions from methane and other non-CO2 gases already cause 50% of global warming. We heard that earlier from Dr. Al-Jaber, and they've been surging for over 15 years. Technologies for bringing these gases under control, for abating, whether in the oil and gas sector or in agriculture, are already available and often commercially viable. Yet, many countries require more data, capacity, and capital to put those technologies into place. Arguably, no single step can deliver greater impact in a shorter time frame than scaling up practical solutions to bring methane emissions down. And that's what this summit is about. We begin now with statements from our hosts. It's my honor to invite all three of them to the stage, as well as the President of Nigeria. I begin by welcoming COP28 President, Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber. Excellency, please join us on stage. The United States Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, the Honorable John Kerry, and the Special Envoy for Climate Change of the People's Republic of China, the Honorable Xi Zhenhua. Please join me on stage. I'm also very pleased to greet the President of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. President Tinubu, if you will kindly take this seat right here. Special Envoy Zhenhua, if you will take this place right here. John Kerry, right there. Welcome. Welcome, gentlemen, and without further ado, I know that we are now very late in the day. I will ask you to please deliver your statements from the podium, and we begin with COP28 President, Mr. Al-Jaber.
Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you again to the United Arab Emirates and to COP28. Allow me to begin by thanking Secretary Kerry and Special Envoy Zhenhua for co-chairing this very important summit focused on the most potent non-CO2 gases. And allow me to begin by congratulating the United States and China on their historic agreement to tackle methane and other non-CO2 GHG emissions. You have come together to give the world some much-needed good news. And we thank you and fully appreciate your effort. This effort could not come soon enough. Cutting methane is the fastest way to reduce temperature rise in the shortest amount of time. That's why the COP28 presidency has made fast mitigation of methane and other non-CO2 gases a core priority. One of the major sources of methane emissions is the oil and gas industry. And as we have proactively engaged this sector through the Oil and Gas Decarbonization Charter, and as a result, 50 companies have committed to zeroing out methane emissions by 2030. In addition, COP28 is mobilizing the oil and gas to help companies lower income countries to address methane emissions. So not only that these companies have committed to zero out methane by 2030, they're also reaching out, extending their support, expertise, knowledge, technology to many other companies in low-income countries to mitigate by zeroing out methane by 2030. That is a big task, and we fully appreciate the effort, the dedication, and commitment of these companies. And today, I can announce that the UAE is contributing $100 million to the World Bank Trust Fund to support the Global Flaring and Methane Reduction Partnership. Beyond methane, we are addressing the role cooling plays in emitting damaging gases into our environment. That is why, together with UNEP and the Cool Coalition, the COP28 presidency launched the Global Cooling Pledge. This is a global effort to improve energy efficiency, reduce emissions from cooling, and increase access to sustainable cooling across the Global South. We are very excited about this effort, and we are very excited about the progress we are making. And we are very determined to continue to engage, and we are very dedicated to continue this pressure on all to address all climate pillars in the most pragmatic manner. We are excited to announce that more than 50 countries have already endorsed our pledge. And today, we call on other countries to join this very important pledge. A key part of the cooling pledge is a call to all parties to ratify the Kigali Amendment on HFCs. And today I am pleased to announce that the UAE's early ratification of the Kigali Amendment. And I must acknowledge and appreciate the effort of my colleague, Mariam Al-Meheri, the Minister of Climate and Environment. She worked tirelessly, and I couldn't not mention her in her absence. She did a fantastic job. These efforts are proof that progress is possible and that they provide momentum for a high ambition GST decision. Allow me to say that this summit must send the most powerful signal to all parties to fast-track the elimination of all non-CO2 gases. I know we can do it, and I know if we were only to collaborate, build on each other's knowledge and expertise, and ensure that we provide the necessary facilitation through policy and finance, we will be able to achieve such ambitious and aggressive goals in the shortest time possible. Let us underline the call for all parties to commit for economy-wide NDCs that cover all greenhouse gases. And let's use the political will gathered here today to keep 1.5 within reach. Before I conclude, I ask everyone to work very closely with the COP28 presidency. We are committed, we are dedicated, and we are determined to deliver the most ambitious response to the global stocktake at COP28 while aligning and keeping 1.5 within reach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Al-Jaber. And before I move on to co-hosts US and China, let me correct myself and remind all of us that the Sunnyland statement, of course, was your work, Special Envoys, and the commitment that we just heard there, NDCs by 2035 that are economy-wide and include all greenhouse gases. That, of course, was very much part of that statement. So with that, let me hand over to Special Envoy Kerry. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much for taking time to come here and be with us this afternoon. And I want to thank Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, who has been tireless in providing leadership and making sure that this COP is headed in the right direction. And I think yesterday, the beginning was a great indicator of the direction that we can go. Hard issues ahead, but we're showing the willingness to be able to tackle them. And I think there's a new sense of energy, which is, no pun intended, but pretty critical for us to manage this. I also want to thank my colleague, my counterpart, the Special Envoy for the People's Republic of China, Xie Zhenhua. Xie Zhenhua and I have known each other now for 30 years or plus. We used to crisscross the planet and meet in an airport here and there and catch a moment and go on to our responsibilities. But I think that what we were able to do at Sunnylands really was a product of a lot of years of building some trust, building a genuine friendship. And I know that's hard for people to understand in this world we live in where everything's polarized and balkanized. But in fact, I think it had a great deal to do with our ability to be able to work on Paris, work on Glasgow, and now together be able to work here in Dubai. This meeting is actually an outgrowth of the meeting that we had at Sunnylands. We spent 4 days negotiating and talking and thinking and having a little fun here and there. But this was an agreement that we made to have a summit here to talk about the issue of methane. When we did Paris, I had the pleasure of, and the privilege of leading our negotiating team in Paris. Methane wasn't even talked about. Just think of that. 5 years ago, people didn't talk about methane in the context of the climate crisis. And in Glasgow, President Biden stood up and said, we're going to have a methane challenge. That by 2030, 30% a reduction across the board, not for one nation, but globally. And if we achieve that 30% reduction, which we think we can, it is the equivalent of every airplane, every car, every truck, every ship in the world going to zero in that period of time. That is monumental, folks. And so we're very appreciative of all those who have embraced this notion. We know, and it's almost cliched now, and I'm going to try to resist it. I don't want to get into the crisis of the moment or the level of the crisis or where we are. But let me just tell you bluntly, when the best scientists in the world unanimously are telling us as leaders in our countries that we are on the brink of tipping points from which you cannot come back, irreversible, that the permafrost or the Barents Sea ice or the coral reefs or most importantly, the Arctic and the Antarctic may be at tipping point or beyond. Last summer, it was 70 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in the Arctic. It was 100 degrees Fahrenheit above normal in the Antarctic. And a massive component of ice that had been lodged in the mud because it was so heavy, it was stuck there, has now melted sufficiently that it's risen and moving across the Southern Ocean towards Georgia Island, and it will melt and accelerate the sea level rise of the planet. So this year, we just learned yesterday, it was confirmed, it's not when we learned it, was the hottest year in history, human history, that we measured. But that's true now of every year almost. For the last 30 years, decades, 3 decades ago was the third now warmest. The second decade was the second warmest, and this last decade, the warmest in history. So I'm not going to say more about it, except to say that if we can't hear Mother Nature and can't judge with our own eyes what the science is telling us, this is not about politics, there's no ideology, there's no pejorative against any one business or any approach. There is simply mathematics and physics and some chemistry and biology. That is what we are acting on. So we, fortunately, were able to come to agreement with China and the United States that we are, as the two largest emitters in the world, obviously we understand it's important for us to be able to find cooperation here. No one country, no business, anywhere in the world will solve this problem by itself. It will take the essence of multilateralism and global cooperation to be able to make this happen. Reducing methane emissions by at least 30% in 2030 is totally in line with the global methane pledge, which could avoid over 0.2 degrees centigrade of warming by 2050. Every expert agrees that dealing with methane, which in its early years of release into the atmosphere is 80 to 100 times more destructive than CO2, or dealing with it in the later years when it is still 20 times more destructive than CO2, is critical to our ability to hold on to 1.5 degrees. The fact is that tackling methane, fugitive gas, which now rises from the thawing of permafrost in the tundra, in Alaska, in Russia, it is fugitive gas, and it just is out there doing damage, unless we discover how we're going to stop it or keep it from leaking or flaring or venting. So, my friends, this is the fastest, simplest, easiest, quickest, cheapest way to be able to make the gains we need to make to reduce the threat to the planet. Now, action to reduce HFCs is also in line with the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, and increasing cooling efficiency in this decade could reduce 0.1% of degrees of warming by 2050. Non-CO2 greenhouse gases also cause almost 500,000 deaths every year from respiratory illnesses and 6% of global crop loss, food production loss, at a time when global production is already deeply strained. Rapidly reducing non-CO2 emissions is a 3-in-1 winner. It is advancing global climate crisis responses, it is providing cleaner air, and food security objectives are met simultaneously. So the stakes, obviously, are what I described. The scientists are saying this moment is alarming. It's without precedent. It is terrifying, some have said. And others will say we are in uncharted territory. So that is why it is critical that we include all greenhouse gases in the next round of the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, that will be finalized by 2025. And I'm really heartened, we're all encouraged, that China, President Xi and Xi Jinping's work, and his team committed to do this in sunny lands, and I call on the global community to likewise commit to include all greenhouse gases economy-wide in future NDCs. This is a fundamental starting point that we need to agree on. In addition to future NDCs, we need to take action now. And I'm pleased to announce a few ways in which the United States is working with our partners to advance methane mitigation at home and abroad. Earlier today, the United States finalized standards to sharply reduce methane emissions from oil and gas operations. And those efforts will achieve a nearly 80% reduction and is planning a rulemaking review. We, the United States, are planning a rulemaking review on methane emission standards for landfills. The United States and the European Union launched a global methane pledge 2 years ago in Glasgow, with 100 countries joining. At COP27 in Sharm, we were able to grow the list of endorsements to 150 countries. And I'm pleased today to announce new global methane pledge endorsements from Angola, Kenya, and Romania. And I'm particularly excited that Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan joined yesterday, and Kosovo, President Kosovo is here, joined today. And I look forward to hearing from Kazakhstan in a few minutes. We are working to turn the pledge itself into action. Over 86 countries, covering well over half of emissions, have national methane action plans in place or engaging with our partners to develop them. And we are launching exciting new initiatives and partnerships, including lowering organic waste or low methane to support subnational waste reduction efforts around the globe. And to help support these country efforts, my friends, President Biden launched the Methane Finance Sprint at the April 2023 Major Economies Forum, which he hosted at the White House. That had the aim of raising $200 million in order to help us go forward. Well, I'm very pleased to announce today that the United States, the European Union, other governments, philanthropies, and the private sector significantly exceeded that target, and together we have mobilized over $1 billion in new grant funding since COP27 for methane in the field. That is more than triple previous annual methane grant funding, and it will leverage billions more in project investment. And these funds are going to support cutting methane emissions across all sectors with a focus on low and middle-income countries. As part of this effort, my friends, well, let me just add one other thing to this. In addition, for the first time, I'll be very quick, but I don't want to miss some of these things because they are new and groundbreaking specifically. We have a group of oil and gas companies that have stepped up and have decided to take a leadership role in helping to deal with this challenge on a local basis. So Equinor, Total, BP, Eni, Oxy, and Shell have each decided that they are going to put up $25 million each in order to put that into the field and help people learn how to be able to reduce those emissions and move forward. And we're working with one other company that is here that we hope will be able to understand a novel approach and implement that. So we will continue to add to this effort as we go forward. Final thing, I want to just quickly get off of here, obviously, but I want to thank our host of the COP28 presidency team. We thank them for their contribution to the Methane Finance Sprint. We thank them for their partnership in this event throughout the COP. And I again thank Xia Zhenhua because he has really labored in the fields of this challenge for a long period of time and critical to our ability to move forward. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much. John Kerry, Special Envoy, and forgive me for interrupting you, but I have been reminded that all four of you have a very pressing diplomatic commitment, and therefore time is of the essence. So excuse me for that brief timekeeping hint. And now to China's envoy, Xi Zhenhua, and also to you, the request, if you would, to keep your remarks fairly concise. Thank you.
尊敬的各位阁下、各位来宾、各位同事、各位朋友，大家好。刚才苏尔坦大会主席和克里特使讲了气候变化的影响。我呢，因为气候变化工作的需要，2次考察了南极。 1次考察了北极，也到了小岛屿国家和最不发达国家去考察、去访问。我亲眼看到了，由于气候变化对2极造成的冰川融化的影响，也看到了小岛屿国家和最不发达国家遭受到极端气候影响的威胁。应该说呢，气候变化 已经从过去我们认为的未来的挑战，已经变成了现实的危机。因此呢，我们必须要团结起来，采取行动。非常高兴，中美2国共同与 COP28 主席国阿联酋一起举办甲烷和其他非二氧化碳温室气体的峰会。 欢迎各位参加这次峰会。举办这次峰会是落实中美关于加强合作应对气候危机的阳光之乡声明的重要举措，也表明我们对控制甲烷等非二氧化碳温室气体的高度重视。面对当前全球气候变化的严峻形势， 我们共聚一堂，探讨控制甲烷和其他非二氧化碳温室气体排放的具体措施。刚才我见了一些石油公司的领导人，他们讲了他们在采取行动，也愿意和中国开展合作，共同来减少甲烷和温室气体的排放，这非常好。所以呢，我们要在这方面要有具体的措施，要有资金的支持，要有技术的路径，这样对我们携手共同应对全球气候变化的挑战，具有重要的意义和深远的影响。中国自2007年制定《中国应对气候变化国家方案》起，在5年规划纲要和碳达峰、碳中和 相关政策文件当中，均提出了加强甲烷等非二氧化碳温室气体管控的相关要求。近年来，中国在甲烷等非二氧化碳控排上取得了一定的成效，在能源领域推动减少能源生产甲烷排放，鼓励甲烷回收利用。 在农业领域，大力推进畜禽养殖废物资源化利用及化肥零增长行动；在废物处理领域，实施了生活垃圾分类制度，推广污水收集处理、污泥厌氧消化等技术，同时推动利用市场机制，激励企业减少甲烷的排放。 通过国家重点研发计划，支持甲烷排放的控制和回收利用研究以及技术开发。在含氟气体管控方面，中国接受了基加利修正案，实施了氢氟碳化物进出口许可证制度，发布了中国消耗臭氧层物质替代品的推荐名录。 推广绿色低碳的替代品。下一步，我们将全面地实施 氢氟碳化物国内配额许可制度。各位同事、各位朋友，中国还是一个正在发展中的国家，在控制甲烷等非二氧化碳温室气体排放上，仍然面临着一系列艰巨的困难和风险的挑战。中国甲烷排放控制工作起步晚、基础弱、数据基础不清、统计核算和监测监管能力不足，法规标准政策体系应不完善，技术和管理能力亟待提高。中国开展甲烷等非二氧化碳气体的控排，不是轻而易举、一朝一夕就能够实现的，需要经过艰苦的长期努力，开展大量基础工作和能力建设。我想这一点呢，广大的发展中国家，和我们现在的处境是一样的。我们愿意干，但是呢，我们能力差，还需要继续努力，通过国际合作来加强这方面的工作。尽管如此，中方仍然克服重重困难，推动制定，并于今年11月，中国政府发布了甲烷排放控制行动方案。这是中国开展甲烷排放管理和控制的首个顶层设计文件，对中国的甲烷控排工作进行了系统的梳理和部署，编制并发布了甲烷方案，是推动高质量发展、推动减污降碳协同增效的内在要求，是积极应对气候变化的自主行动，也是对应对全球气候变化的积极贡献。应对气候变化重在落实，我们将把甲烷方案的制度设计和任务要求转化为实际行动，不断地夯实基础能力，在能源、农业和废物处理领域采取具体的有效的措施，处理好甲烷管控和能源安全、粮食安全、产业链供应链安全和保障人民生活等方面的关系。我们非常愿意与各方开展合作，不断地提高能力，积极推动落实重点领域甲烷管控计划、任务与措施，推动降碳减污扩类增长，为积极应对全球气候变化做出中国的贡献。我非常感谢阿联酋首尔坛主席给我们提供了这么好的一个平台。我也非常感谢跟我合作了30年的克里先生，我们建立的友谊和我们共同努力的这个事业能够取得积极的进展。谢谢大家，谢谢大家。
Thank you very much to China Climate Envoy Xi Zhenhua for those remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, as we have heard from our hosts, a number of countries are signing up now to methane emission reduction commitments. And for that reason, as emblematic of that effort, we do welcome Nigerian President Tinubu. As Africa's largest oil and gas producer, Nigeria has set itself the goal of reducing methane emissions from flaring by 100% by 2030 and integrating that goal into development planning and its NDC. So welcome to you, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. President of the COP28, thank you for providing this platform and managing it effectively well. John Kerry, Your Excellencies, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, we welcome the effectiveness of your leadership that has given us the hope to sustain livelihood in the rest of the world. the earth has been injured, not by us mainly, by the big economies. And I'm glad two of them are here. John Kerry and the China making pledges is very good. And we are with you. Even though we are the least beneficiary of what has happened. Sitting there hearing you, I know I have to commit ourselves. And we have been doing so before today. We are committed to critical steps to reduce methane emission by ensuring flood gas are eliminated. There's a huge penalty for that. There's equally a huge incentive to do so. The measures that we're taking here is a welcome development, no doubt about that. And we are with the leadership of UAE for the commitment so far. We are consolidating on the gas export, usage domestically and export for other countries. I can assure you that we will be partner in progress to achieve renewables. We are committed to energy mix. We are providing cooking gas for a large population. We will continue to do that. We've signed off on reduction of methane. We will leverage on new technology. And we hope the two giant nations and the Emirates will be able to help us through. What I know of Africa is the fact that the risk in additional investment and technological know-how, it is very necessary. And the largest economies that have benefited immensely should do more real fast because their health needs healing and is crying for attention more quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Tinubu. And before I invite the four of you to take your places once more, let me ask if we can get a very quick photo of the four of you to commemorate this moment. Thank you very much. Thank you for your commitments. Thank you for the energy that you are giving to this cause. And I invite you now to take your places because we do continue, ladies and gentlemen. Our methane summit continues. I would like now, while we talk about country commitments and what countries need in order to turn those commitments into reality, I would like to invite Sofia Suleimanova, Special Representative for Kazakhstan, to please come to the stage and tell us more about what Kazakhstan is doing with its green economy plan that embraces ambitious clean energy goals. Welcome, Sofia Suleimanova.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would kindly take your seats. Our session is by no means over. We still have a number of speakers, so kindly do take your places. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear Sultan Ahmed Al-Jaber, President of COP28, it seems like we're still sitting.
Dear guests, dear ladies and gentlemen, be so kind, please, as to return to your seats so that we can continue our session and hear from the special representative of the Kazakhstan government, which also is here to talk about methane emission reduction efforts as a very important Central Asian oil and gas producer. Please.
Thank you very much, dear Excellencies. Well, first of all, thank you very much for convening this summit on methane and other non-CO2 greenhouse gases. It is a powerful signal that this summit is co-hosted by the co-presidency and the world's two largest economies. This reflects an urgent and important shared conviction. Cutting methane emissions is the fastest means we have to slow global warming. As the methane pledge goes from Glasgow moment to Dubai movement, we feel it is timely to join the work of collectively reducing global methane emissions from all sources by 30% by 2030. I am pleased, therefore, to recall the announcement by the President Tokayev during national statement yesterday on Kazakhstan's joining the global methane pledge. Ladies and gentlemen, joining the global methane pledge will complement our ongoing participation in the World Bank's Zero Routine Flaring by 2030 initiative. As the bank has reported, after a decade of stalled progress, global gas flaring volumes fell by around 3% in 2022. Kazakhstan has, for the last 7 straight years, achieved a consistent decline in flare volumes. But there is much work to do. According to the International Energy Agency, in 2022, Kazakhstan emitted an estimated 3,700 kiloton of methane emissions, roughly 1% of global total. Like others here today, for Kazakhstan, the methane challenge is primarily an energy challenge, specifically in the oil and gas sector. The IEA finds that the energy sector accounts for 74% of Kazakhstan's methane emissions, with a balance in the agriculture and waste sectors. Within the energy sector, the largest sources of our methane emissions are onshore oil venting and steam coal. Thankfully, solutions exist. The IEA believes that 75% of methane emissions in the oil and gas sector can be reduced through leak detection and repair programs. In the coal sector, 50% of methane emissions could be reduced through coal and flaring or oxidation, through coal mine methane recovery and alternatively flaring or oxidation. In addition, it is critical to stop all non-emergency flaring and venting and to prevent and quickly stop large leaks. Dear friends, in line with this pledge today, the government will work on an actionable plan to reduce the methane emissions and integrate methane into our NDCs. Given the scale of this challenge, we seek the cooperation with international methane emission reduction initiatives like the Climate and Clean Air Coalition and UNEP's International Methane Emission Observatory. We're similarly eager to tackle the enormous challenge of coal in our region by implementing our region's first ever just energy transition partnership in Kazakhstan. As a matter of principle and fairness, climate action should not require emerging economies to sacrifice national development and modernization. We believe that methane capture can offer positive economic opportunities, but that requires greater and more diverse capital to scale up the deployment of proven methane abatement solutions. And here I am pleased to note the US-Kazakhstan joint statement on accelerated methane mitigation, and we welcome the US readiness to work on mobilization of investments in methane reduction projects to support Kazakhstan's efforts. At the same time, methane is not just a public sector problem. COP28 is a unique opportunity for industry to demonstrate that it is serious by prioritizing the reduction of waste emissions in the oil and gas supply chain. Ladies and gentlemen, the global methane pledge can potentially reduce global warming by 0.2 degrees Celsius by 2050. This is very significant for Central Asia as well as the Gulf region, which will suffer disproportionately from any global temperature rise. That is why, despite the challenge, we joined this pledge. The climate emergency is a global crisis that requires a global response. Collective action dooms us to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much to the Special Representative for International Environmental Cooperation, Sofia Solimanova from Kazakhstan. We now hear an additional country statement from Paulo Teixeira, who is Minister of Agrarian Development in Brazil. Please, you have the floor. And if you would, please, very brief statement, since we are now running quite seriously over time. Thank you.
Muito obrigado pela oportunidade, mais uma vez representando o presidente Lula do Brasil. O Brasil também é signatário dos acordos internacionais para a diminuição do gás metano na natureza. No nosso país, o gás metano tem basicamente 3 fontes. A primeira dela são os resíduos urbanos. A segunda, o gás. Em terceiro lugar, a pecuária. E o Brasil está fazendo um grande esforço para diminuir a emissão de gás metano. Esse esforço ele está principalmente na melhoria da produtividade da pecuária. O Brasil está lançando agora um grande programa de recuperação das pastagens degradadas do nosso país. Recuperação essa que vai melhorando a produtividade da nossa pecuária. Ao mesmo tempo, o rastreamento da nossa pecuária para que ela seja toda rastreada, para que não tenha qualquer relação com o desmatamento. E, em terceiro lugar, nós estamos lançando um grande programa de recuperação de áreas degradadas por meio de sistemas agroflorestais, isto é, florestas produtivas, recuperar espécies nativas que tenham grande ganho econômico para as nossas populações. Na Amazônia, por exemplo, o açaí, o cupuaçu, o guaraná, a castanha, o cacau, portanto, sistemas agro-silvopastoris que possam juntar, de um lado, a agropecuária com sistemas florestais e aumentar a produtividade da nossa pecuária e assim diminuir a emissão de gases metano. E também no tratamento dos resíduos urbanos. Nós queremos aqui saudar a grande novidade dessa sessão de hoje, que é a união da China com os Estados Unidos para um acordo global, que acho que é um fato histórico para a humanidade que nós temos que comemorar. Muito obrigado.
Thank you very much, Minister, for those remarks. As we have heard from a number of our speakers, building the capacity and the technology to slash methane emissions often takes a little help from one's friends. So in the last section of our summit, we want to hear from some of the multilateral organizations that are engaging with member countries to support transformative action. And as always, I would be very grateful if our speakers keep their remarks fairly short, since we are now running quite significantly over time. It's a great honor to hand over to the World Bank President, Ajay Banga. For some time now, the bank has been calling on major emitters to adopt measures to cut methane emissions, saying they are one of the most cost-effective climate ambitions around. And clearly, many countries and companies are willing to take that advice, yet lack not only technical capacity, but also financial support. So tell us what the bank can do.
Okay, so I'm going to keep it very short. The bank is very clear that methane is far more dangerous, as you heard from Secretary Kerry, than other forms of pollution, including carbon dioxide. Yet methane gets only 2% of the financing that goes into climate. One of the first things we are pledging to do is that in the next 18 months, 15 countries will be signed up to expand scale on things we know already work, in rice paddy cultivation, in livestock management, and in waste management. We believe we can get this done, and over the life of these investments, we can reduce methane by 10 million tons just from these countries alone. That is a tangible piece of progress that we will make, and we will activate it starting early next year. The second thing we're focused on, again, as Secretary Kerry mentioned, is to focus on flaring. Now, there are a number of countries, both in the Western world, Norway, the US, the UAE as well, but there's also the oil and gas companies that together have come and said, we need to do something about oil flaring. The World Bank is very much a part of that, and it's going to help make sure that we bring down this practice. These two things alone, flaring and the work on rice paddy, livestock, and waste management, are what we commit to do. We believe the time for talk is over. The time for action is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, World Bank President Ajay Banga. As we heard from Dr. Al-Jaber, it's a low-hanging fruit, and the bank is going to help to pick it. Let us now go to the International Gas Union's President, Lee Yalan. The IGU works to provide data that quantifies, documents, and tracks methane emissions, and says that mitigation is the right thing to do. You've called for a collective approach, so let's see how you see your role. Please, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I can feel the strong commitment and the confidence of the international community to reduce methane emission from the previous speeches. International Gas Union is a worldwide non-profit organization that covers the entire gas value chain and represents 90% of the global gas market. Although the gas industry plays an important role in global energy supply, it also emits methane. I will take the IGU Chinese members as an example of the methane abatement status of the gas industry. Methane emission reduction is a challenger task for the industry. But Chinese oil and gas companies are taking various actions on methane abatement to deliver China's commitment to the international community. Firstly, top-level policy design of companies. CNPC formulated its methane emission control action plan and carried out 7 big projects CNOOC has incorporated methane control into its green and low carbon development strategy. Secondly, strengthening detection and data analysis. Many companies apply drones, laser detection to enhance data accuracy. CNOOC has developed upstream methane emission according and monitoring methane through long-term tracking and research on methane emissions from its offshore oil and gas wells and coal-back methane projects. Thirdly, great efforts to realize breakthroughs in coal technology. CNPC has reduced fluorine on its oil and gas fields by adopting associated gas recovery technology. CNOOC uses lower power gas turbines and plasma ignition fluorine technology to improve recovery and complete combustion of whiting gas. CNOPEC has reduced the pipeline leakage by adopting tight line multi-phase transportation technology. Beijing Gas Group has mechanical plugging to reduce gas venting during maintenance and daily operation of gas pipeline. We have seen some progress in reducing methane emissions by gas industry, but it's not enough. As the president of the IGU, on behalf of the global gas industry, I hereby declare as below. Firstly, we will further enhance the industry's awareness of the importance of methane emission, urge members to set clear goals, improve the collection and management of methane emission data, and increase data comprehensive and accuracy. Thirdly, we will strengthen technology and management innovation, enhance international cooperation, and share best practices. Ladies and gentlemen, gas is one of the critical energies to advance energy transition while ensure energy security. Methane emission is the biggest obstacle to the development. The gas industry will not wait and will take more responsibilities on reducing methane emission. Thank you.
Thank you very much to IGU President Li Yalan for her remarks. And now, with very, very warm thanks for her patience and for being with us as we go so significantly off schedule, let me invite the Executive Director of the UN Environment Programme, Inga Andersson, to please come to the stage and to support the International Methane Pledge that was launched in Glasgow.
I have to say thank you. Yeah. For those who had the stamina to stay, I say thank you. I must say that I couldn't help noticing that the women came at the very end, and you get me at the very, very end, so there we go. But look, what can you say? But I'm not going to be long. What are the non-CO2 greenhouse gases? What are they really? You know, it's easy to say, but methane leaks out of our gas and oil and coal infrastructure into the air, and as you heard from John Kerry, it's a very potent gas. It is also short-lived. Nitrous oxides gets created when we, and that's another non-CO2 greenhouse gas, gets created when we burn our engines or when we make fertilizers. And fluorinated gases, well, they get created when we cool stuff, the air conditioning and our refrigerators, our foams and our fire hazard combatants. So we need to understand that it is not just coal, CO2 from coal, oil and gas. It's also these other non-CO2 gases that we need to take care of. We at UNEP, and I'll be very fast, we are the host, but folks forgot to mention that, of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, actually the place where the Climate Pledge sits, the Secretariat for that. We are also the place where we have the, we, UNEP, are proud to have the International Methane Emissions Observatory. That's why you know what you know about where the leaks are. Not without importance if we're trying to deal with it. And we are also dealing, of course, with the oil and gas methane partnership, working with over 100 companies to engage in the reduction of both flaring, venting, and leaking, because this is the lifeboat. We need to decarbonize our economies, yes, but more importantly, right now, decarbonization will take some time, and I think we have to understand that. So in the meantime, we need to deal with the methane and the non-CO2 gases because they are potent, very powerful, some of them more than 100 times more potent than CO2, but they are also short-lived. Getting them out of the system will significantly reduce our overshoot of 1.5, which we are set to do as we are continuing right now. So just to say, finally, the Montreal Protocol, which I have the privilege of hosting as well, which you may know, that protocol has recently been monetized by $1 billion, hosted by UNEP, and this helps countries ensure that they can get out of HCFCs, they can get out of chlorinated gases, which are so very negative. So we will remain vigilant. We will keep a watching eye through the gas flaring, through the IMEO, the observatory, through the CCAC, and through the Oil and Gas Partnership for Methane emission reduction and elimination. We'll publish our numbers, and we have this eye in the sky, and we know where the leaks are, and we stand by the science. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Inger Andersson, and providing crucial data also, of course, to determine effective action and also accountability. So many thanks for those words that do bring our methane summit to a close. Thank you, everybody who has stayed with us throughout this long delayed session. I'm grateful for your attention, and I wish all of you the utmost in success through the rest of the COP28. Goodbye.
عندما التزمنا باستضافة كوب 28 التزمنا أيضاً بجمع العالم لكي نتحد ونعمل وننجز.
In 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do.
Juntos vamos preservar não apenas legado, mas o legado de toda a humanidade. Juntos seremos a mudança.
But I think we'll look back on today as a real milestone towards accelerating this adaptation innovation.
Nearly 1 billion girls and boys, roughly half the world's children, live in countries at extremely high risk for the harmful effects of climate change.
Why does that matter? Well, because 50 million children every year are seeing their education disrupted because of climate-induced disasters.
I too have and continue to be affected by the impacts of climate change, and I recognize the voice of youth as the torchbearers of the future.
Let's make COP28 a beacon of hope, a beacon of inspiration, and a lighthouse for all the young people that are watching us now, watching our commitments and our actions.
يسرني الإعلان عن إنشاء صندوق بقيمة 30 مليار دولار للحلول المناخية على مستوى العالم.
That up until this moment, we have received 123 commitments from countries that are ready to sign the health declaration.
That the COP28 UAE Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems and Climate Action has so far received 134 endorsements.
to a close at COP28. We thank you for your attendance and wish you a very successful remainder of COP28. Thank you.